Yahushai, which is the name of the Father and the Son in the Paleo Hebrew tongue. Shabbat Shalom to those of y'all observing the Sabbath today. And I hope y'all are having a good Feast of Unleavened Bread to the few brothers that have hit me up and told me that they're already keeping it. Right. So today's lesson is going to be called Passover, Self-Examination, and Eating of the Lamb Worthily. So I have another lesson that I did probably, I think it was 3 years ago, that tells you specifically how to keep the Passover. Today, we're going to focus more on examining yourself to make sure that when you do keep the Passover, that you are keeping it to the best of your ability, worthily. Now, obviously, none of us know if we're worthy of the Most High's grace or mercy. And like it says in Romans 9, he's going to have mercy on who he wants to have mercy on anyways. But we need to do to the best of our ability to judge ourselves and to examine ourselves to make sure that we are not eating of it unworthily, and we know that we're eating of it unworthily. So we're going to go ahead and start in First Corinthians chapter 11 and 23. Salakia.
Verse 23. For I have received of the Lord that which also I delivered unto you, that the Lord Yahushua, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread. And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, Take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me.
So when Yahushua, the same night that he was going to be betrayed, right, he took the bread, the unleavened bread, and he broke the bread, and he said, Do this in remembrance of me. Go ahead.
After the same manner also he took the cup when he had supped, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do ye as oft as ye drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as ye eat this bread and drink this cup, ye do show the Lord's death till he come.
So it's saying as often as you do this, you're showing Yahweh Shai's death until he comes back. So I was just talking to one of my cousins the other day about how in the Catholic Church, they do this every single time that they have what they call a mass or a service, right? It doesn't matter if it's on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, whatever day. And this is supposed to be done as often as we keep this feast, which is on the Passover. So on the Passover, we eat the unleavened bread, we drink the wine, we eat the lamb, and we're doing this in remembrance of Yahushua. We are showing his death till he comes back, which is also why when we kill the lamb, for those of y'all who are actually going to get a lamb, you should also be doing it in remembrance of Yahushua. I know, like I was talking to a sister not too long ago about actually being there, because it says the whole congregation shall kill it if you read it. And there's some people that don't want to see that happen, but you should take it and do it in remembrance of him. And just think, if you don't like seeing an animal get killed, imagine our Messiah getting killed for us and for our sins. But go ahead.
Wherefore, whosoever shall eat this bread and drink this cup of the Lord unworthily shall be guilty of the body and blood of the Lord.
So it says, if you are unworthy and you're drinking of the cup, which is the wine, which represents the blood, or you're eating of his body, the bread, the unleavened bread, then and you're doing it unworthily, you are guilty of his death.
But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. For he that eateth and drinketh unworthily eateth and drinketh damnation to himself, not discerning the Lord's body.
So it says we have to examine ourselves, and then after we examine ourselves, let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. So if you examine yourself and you say, you know what, I was struggling with this or that, and I put it off, I've been doing really good, I've been studying and praying, and I got over the stumbling blocks that were tripping me up, and then you keep it, you eat of that bread and you drink of that cup. Then if you examine yourself and, oh, well, man, I've really been struggling with this, with some type of addiction or some type of hatred or lust or whatever the case may be, and then you still observe it, well, you're going to eat of that bread and drink of that cup, which is in verse 29. It says you can eat and drink damnation to yourself. Why? Because you're not discerning Yahweh's body. You're not discerning the sacrifice that was made for you and for everyone that he shed his blood for. Go ahead.
For this cause many are weak and sickly among you, and many sleep. For if we would judge ourselves, we should not be judged.
So for this reason, for what reason? Reading it in context, not discerning Yahweh's body, because a lot of people don't discern the sacrifice that was made. Verse 30, for this cause many are weak and sickly among you, and many sleep. So because many people, or the majority of people, whether it be in the world, in Christianity, even some that claim to be in the truth or of the faith, they don't discern how much of a sacrifice it was and everything that he did, that the Most High did by sacrificing his son. They are weak, whether it be mentally weak, emotionally weak, spiritually weak, physically weak. It says sickly. People are mentally sick, are physically sick, are spiritually sick, and people sleep because they don't discern Yahweh's body. Right? They're spiritually asleep. They're literally asleep. They can't even get out of bed because they're so depressed all the time and just laying in bed. Right? For if we would judge ourselves, we should not be judged. Right? So I was just telling someone, yes, 2 days ago, that if we judge ourselves, right, and we don't observe the Passover, which again, like I said, um, in the other live that I did was more on how to observe the Passover. I went over that in Numbers. I believe it's 13 or 14 or 12, somewhere in 12 through 14, where it says there's a makeup Passover. Right? If you can't observe it because you're unclean on the 14th day of the first month, then you can actually do it the 14th day of the second month. Right? So if we judge ourselves, then we should not be judged. If we examine ourselves and figure out, you know what, I just noticed that I'm actually struggling with this, right? And the Most High puts it on your spirit to be convicted. Well, guess what? Now at least He's not gonna have to judge you, right? He's not gonna have to cause that damnation to come upon you because you ate and drank of it unworthily. If you want to get 2 Corinthians 13:5, so I'm gonna read those last three verses, 29 through 31. For he that eateth and drinketh unworthily eateth and drinketh damnation to himself, not discerning Yahweh's body. For this cause many are weak and sickly among you, and many sleep. For if we would judge ourselves, we should not be judged.
This is 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5. Examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Yahweh Shai is in you, except ye be reprobates?
So it says, examine yourselves, right? You can't fix a problem until you first examine yourself. It says, whether ye be in the faith, prove your own selves. We all have our own path of proving ourselves to the Most High. Right? We're all on the kingdom's path in the sense of trying to follow the word, but we all have different things that we have to do along that path. We all have different gifts. We all have different struggles. We all have different things that we're actually stronger at than others. But we all have to prove ourselves in more ways than one. It says, know ye not your own selves, how that Yahweh Shai, Mashiach, is in you. So the word has to be in us. The word has to be dwelling in us. And not just mentally, where we can recite verses and all of these things that sound good to people or make posts that sound good, but we have to be living it out with our hands, right? When it's actually in us, it's going to cause us to walk wisely and follow what we know and what we say and what we preach. It says, except ye be reprobates. Because if we're not doing it, then we're reprobates. Someone who is already destined to not make it. Right. And actually, if you want to get what is it? 2 Samuel, I believe it's 12. Adorayanya. Shalom, brothers and sisters. The Most High gave us life today. All praises. Khan. Shalom. Shabbat shalom if you're keeping the Sabbath. Warrior's Dream. Shabbat shalom. Blessings to you as well, to you and your household, everybody else on here now or who will be on here later.
Shabbat shalom.
Khan, yeah. Second Samuel 12. So let me read this verse real quick and then we'll get into this real quick. Little side example. So in First Corinthians 11, it says 28, but let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. 31 says, for if we would judge ourselves, we should not be judged. So now me, this brother, you brothers on here, none of us that I know of are King David.
Not at all.
Right? But we're gonna get a little story from King David. Um, just to show you what happens when we don't judge ourselves or we don't examine and judge ourselves, and the Most High has to bring judgment on us. You want to start on verse 1?
Second Samuel chapter 12, starting at verse 1. And Yahweh sent Nathan unto David, and he came unto him and said unto him, there were two men in one city, the one rich and the other poor. The rich man had exceeding many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing save one little ewe lamb, which he had bought and nourished up. And it grew up together with him, and with his children it did eat of his own meat, and drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was unto him as a daughter.
So Nathan's telling him a parable. The prophet Nathan's telling David a parable. He said you had one man, he was rich, one was poor. Obviously, the rich man had a lot. The poor man had very little. He had one lamb.
And there came a traveler unto the rich man, and he spared to take of his own flock and of his own herd, to dress for the wayfaring man that was come unto him, but took the poor man's lamb and dressed it for the man that was come to him. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man, and he said to Nathan, as Yahweh liveth, the man that had done this thing shall surely die.
So Nathan told David that there was a traveler that came to the rich man, and instead of um, getting the rich man's one of his lambs because he had a huge flock, he actually took the poor man's lamb. Right? Go ahead.
And he shall restore the lamb fourfold because he did this thing and because he had no pity.
So David got very angry. It said his anger was kindled against this man for doing that to the poor man. And he said, I'm going to make him restore the lamb fourfold, right? According to the law. And because he had no pity on this poor man.
And Nathan said to David, thou art the man.
So Nathan said to David, you're the man. Go ahead.
Thus saith Yahweh, God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. And I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if that had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things.
So he said, you're the man that took parabolically, that took the lamb or took everything that the poor man had, right? And then he said, the Most High is saying this to you. I made you the king. I saved you from the hand of Saul, because when Saul was the king, how many times he tried to kill him? I don't even remember. A bunch of times he tried to kill him, right? The Most High saved him from that. He gave him Saul's house. He gave him a bunch of wives. He gave him Israel and Judah. It says if that would have been too little, I would have even given you more. Go ahead.
Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of Yahweh to do evil in his sight? Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon.
So he said, he's telling him, you know what you did, right? You went against the Most High's commandments. You did evil in his sight. He had Uriah killed. He sent him into battle. He put him at the front so he could get killed because he wanted his wife Bathsheba, right? And he basically caused him to be killed. Go ahead.
Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. Thus saith Yahweh, behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this sun. For thou didst it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun.
So the Most High said, because you did this and you did it in private, now I'm gonna make everybody see it publicly. Go ahead.
And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against Yahweh. And Nathan said unto David, Yahweh also hath put away thy sin, thou shalt not die. Howbeit, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of Yahweh to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto thee shall surely die.
So because David committed adultery and committed murder, basically, the Most High was going to punish him openly, and he was, because he was a murderer, right? An eye for an eye. He also took away his child, which, if you read on, it's going to go on to say exactly what happened. And obviously, he repented to the Most High, and Solomon came after that. That's a terrible thing in righteousness, like it says in Psalm 65:5. But going back to what we were originally on was 1 Corinthians 11 and 28. It says, "But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup." And 31 says, "For if we would judge ourselves, we should not be judged." Right. So if David would have judged himself, examined himself, then these things wouldn't have had to happen. Shabbat shalom, Barziyah Judah. Hope everything's good with you and your household. So we also read in 2 Corinthians 13:5, we have to examine ourselves, prove ourselves, and know ourselves that Hamashiach, or the word, is in us. Right. So in order to keep the Passover, again, just to reiterate one more time, we really have to examine ourselves so that we aren't eating to ourselves damnation. Right. And that's like I've been telling everybody that's planning on coming and keeping it with us next month. Yeah, we're starting March, right? Next month, that's the main thing. Me, I can only do so much, or anybody can only do so much when it comes to talking to somebody and discerning where their spirit's at. But in the end, it's our own, how'd you say it in that one post, our own conviction with the Most High?
Yeah, your own personal conviction at the end of the day. That's because your personal conviction, your self conviction, in your words, you saying how if you really have conviction, it's gonna make you do something.
Yeah.
But that conviction that you have is your personal relationship with the Most High.
Con. It's your relationship with the Most High. And nobody knows, just like this brother has a relationship with his wife, I have one with my wife. You could see from the outside, but you don't really know how that relationship is on the inside, right? And it's the same thing with us and the Most High. Somebody could be saying they're doing perfectly fine and they're not struggling with nothing and all these things, but then they're super convicted on the inside, right? And we can't see it, but the Most High can see it, and He knows, and that person knows the majority of the time as well, right? So let's go to 1 Corinthians 5. 1 Corinthians 5. And we're going to start on verse 6.
1 Corinthians 5:6. Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump?
So a little bit of leaven leavens the whole lump. And glorying, it's like it says in the scriptures that knowledge puffeth up. A lot of people come into the faith or come into the truth, and because they get some knowledge, which obviously comes from the Most High, like it says in Proverbs 2:6 and many of other verses, they allow that to puff them up, and they start glorying in the knowledge that they have, right? And that's pride, and pride is the beginning of sin. But anything that is sin can be considered leaven. And actually, if you can go to Leviticus, if you can hold that and go to Leviticus 2:11. Because everything, like I say all the time, the scriptures, most of the time, there's polysemy involved. It can mean more than one thing, or it can symbolize more than one thing, right? So when you look at what Paul was writing, or anything in the so-called New Testament, the Apocrypha, the majority of the time it goes back to the law. Because even Paul said, I speak to those that
Know the law.
know the law. He didn't have to say, like it says in Leviticus 2 and 11, like it says in Leviticus 6 and 16, because he was speaking to them that knew the law already. Go ahead.
It's Leviticus 2 and 11. It says, no meat offering which ye shall bring unto Yahweh shall be made with leaven. For ye shall burn no leaven, nor any honey in any offering of Yahweh made by fire.
So it says, no meat offering could have leaven in it, right? Any burnt offering, it couldn't have leaven in it. If you can get Leviticus 6 and 16. So this is very symbolic because when we're keeping the Passover, even though we are not an offering to the Most High, we are offering up our vessels to the Most High, because how many people out here in the earth today are actually striving to keep the Passover, right? There's going to be probably billions of people, right, that keeping Easter this weekend.
Yeah.
Or is it, yeah, this weekend,
I
right?
saw him at the grocery store today.
Con. So how many people are doing that? But then how many people are actually offering themselves or offering just the fact that they're not going to keep Easter because they know it's against the Most High, right? That is a sacrifice in itself, right?
but, but we're doing it for the kids, man.
And I remember first coming into the truth, and that was, I'm sure, like all of you, right? Probably 90 something percent of us, when you stopped keeping Easter, when you stopped keeping Christmas, your whole family turns against you. They look at you like you're crazy, right? They might even cut you off.
Yeah.
Or the big one is birthdays. Well, you didn't call me on my birthday.
Birthdays and Mother's Days and
Mother,
stuff like that.
con,
My mom tripped out the first time I ain't tell her Happy Mother's Day.
con.
She literally snapped on me.
So that's us sacrificing something for the Most High, right? And now for most of us that are later into the truth, it's not that big of a deal to do, right? It's already become like muscle memory. We know we're doing it for the Most High, but I know there's still brothers and sisters out there that are struggling, like, man, well, this person, or they're gonna be mad at me, or like the brother said, we should do it for the kids. I've heard that many times.
Mm-hmm.
But what we have to understand is that the Most High is far more important than the kids. And when you think about it, that's why I don't even like to call my children kids.
Yeah.
A kid is a baby goat.
Yeah.
The Most High is going to separate the sheep from the goats.
Yeah.
Right. So no, we're not going to do it for the kids. We have children. But anyways, go ahead and read 6 and 16.
Leviticus 6 and 16. And the remainder thereof shall Aaron and his sons eat. With unleavened bread shall it be eaten in the holy place. In the court of the tabernacle of the congregation they shall eat it. It shall not be baken with leaven. I have given it unto them for their portion of my offerings made by fire. It is most holy, as is the sin offering and as the trespass offering. All the males among the children of Aaron shall eat of it. It shall be a statute forever in your generations concerning the offerings of Yahweh made by fire. Everyone that toucheth them shall be holy.
So the priests, when they would eat the bread, what they would call showbread,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just like the offerings, the burnt offerings that were made to the Most High, they had to be unleavened. And we know that back then, the priests were the holiest of the tribes. They had to be
Dressed in linen, had to wash themselves before they even went in there. They couldn't wear specific shoes.
calm. They had to be more holy than the other tribes, because they were the ones making the offerings to the Most High. They were the ones that were actually speaking to the Most High on their behalf. Sometimes they were even keeping the holy days on the behalf of the people.
And they were the ones that's teaching the law, I think, too.
They were teaching the law. They were making the judgments. They could only marry virgins, etc. They were held to a higher standard, just like those of us who teach the word are held to a higher standard, right? So the point of this, though, is if you want to go back to 1 Corinthians 5 and 6, if you want to read that.
Okay. 1 Corinthians 5 and 6. Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump?
So a little bit of leaven can leaven the whole lump. So we read in the law that any offering could not have any leaven. There was a little bit of leaven, then guess what? The whole thing wasn't holy. It wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
So it also said they had to eat of unleavened bread in the tabernacle, right? And only the priests were allowed to eat it. So a little bit of leaven would have leavened all of it, and the sacrifice wouldn't have been good, and the priests wouldn't have been considered holy. They would have been considered unclean. They wouldn't even be able to make offerings if they had leaven in the bread that they were eating of.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So do you want to keep going on verse 7?
Okay. Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Hamashiach, our Passover, is sacrificed for us.
So we have to purge out that old leaven, which, like I said already, it can be considered any type of sin. It can be considered any type of thing that is going to cause you to go off from the Most High. Right. And it says, why? Because even Hamashiach is our Passover and is sacrificed for us. Go ahead.
Therefore let us keep the feast not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth.
So before I got on this live or this lesson, I was talking to a sister, and this is one thing that I pointed out, and I want to point out to everybody. It says not to keep it with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. Okay, I'm sure the majority of us have either been affiliated with, or have been a part of, or have at the least spoken with people that are in congregations or camps or things like that, right? And me personally, being involved in one way or another with probably a handful of different camps, I could tell you that almost every single camp that I've been affiliated with or been around has sincere brothers and sisters. They have, like, they're sincere about trying to follow the Most High. They're sincere about, trying to live according to His ways. But it says that unleavened bread of sincerity and truth, right? So our sincerity has to be aligned with the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the division comes between, camps, congregations, groups, whatever you want to call them. So what it always comes down to, when you're sincere, you're going to be open to being corrected with the truth. No matter if you're the head of a camp or you're just somebody who just joined, no matter if you're just a brother or sister that's by yourself, right? Maybe you saw something on Instagram or on the internet or YouTube or something, and it sparked that interest, it sparked that your spirit bared witness with the word, and then you started studying. It doesn't matter from, I don't like to say like the top to the bottom, but whether you're famous in this truth, and we know a lot of people want to be famous in the truth,
Mm-hmm.
or whether you're just somebody who nobody really even knows about. And I don't mean that to say that in a disrespectful way, right? Either way, though, we have to be coming with unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So if you learn something and you're like, man, I've been doing this, and I thought this meant this. Baptism is one of the biggest ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like me, for example, I believed it was baptism of the word for a few years before I even realized, or the Most High opened my eyes to see it was actual physical baptism, like Yahushua got physically baptized.
Yeah, it was about like 3 to 4 months for me.
Come and again, that comes from what we learn from other people, right? It's like a sister early. It's funny. I took my rib to get her haircut earlier,
Oh
and there
yeah.
was an old lady, and she was talking about the rapture.
Oh no.
She was talking about the rapture. She was saying, "Oh, my daughter, she's so disrespectful," and because she told my husband that the rapture, it's fake, and we don't know what we're talking about, and we're following false doctrine. And me, I heard from an elder long ago, like, if they don't ask you to join the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't meddle in matters that don't concern you, right?
Like grabbing a dog by the ears.
Exactly. So I'm sitting there kind of laughing about it, because as I'm hearing her speak about this, I was listening to a message that a sister had sent me, And she actually was like, "Oh yeah, I heard about it. This church, I heard about the rapture doctrine." And it's funny because I never came to that conclusion on my own,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the point that I'm making is when we learn certain things, the majority of the time, it's not us reading it and then we just automatically believe the wrong thing. It's actually we're being taught the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So,
People are the biggest influences.
for sure. And when you're newer to the truth, you can be heavily influenced, right? You're more green, or you're more gullible, for lack of a better term, to
Mm-hmm.
believe something quickly. So the point that I'm making is, like, me and the brother were just talking about it before we got on here, that everybody's gonna get tested, everybody's gonna get certain trials before Passover. And I think one of the biggest ones for the majority of people is gonna be if you can be humble enough in one way or another to be corrected by the scriptures. And it's happened to all of us, right?
Man.
And that's why it says sincerity and truth. We can have a certain level of sincerity, but then the truth is what's going to prove if we're sincere or not.
Yeah. How well you take it, because you might not agree with it. Sometimes I have to tell my rib this stuff, you know what I'm saying? Whenever I correct her on stuff. Sometimes she won't agree with what I'm saying, but I tell you, you might not agree with it, but it's the truth. You still gotta accept it. You know,
Con,
it's everything you just said though. But
con,
the truth is the truth. It ain't what you want it to be. It is what it is.
con. Like the brother Christopher said, water baptism for the remission of sins. So yeah, Acts 2:38 says to be baptized for remission of sins. Right? That can't be through the word. We don't get remission of sins every time we read the word. But that's a big one for brothers and sisters. You want to read that out?
Yeah, I was actually reading this a little minute ago. He said, I just got online on Clubhouse with one of the famous groups we have in Israel, and I'm pretty sure I know who it is. And man, these brothers got on my noggin, twisted my words, and tried to call me wicked just to fit their agenda, shaking my head. I already know who you talking about, bro. It's manipulation, bro. Saying all that to say that the pride is very wicked and rampant in this truth, that our people get puffed up on the little bit of knowledge we have, especially by it being a doctrine. I agree with you, man, and I agree with everything the brother said too, man. There's a lot of sincere people that actually are in these groups and stuff like that that either haven't came out or they just came out. Because I'm cool with a few of them. You know what I mean? I actually had one of them. One of them reached out to me recently, and he was actually following one of the most famous groups in Israel, right? And he was literally telling me that what he realized recently was how much pride is going around, and he didn't realize it for a long time. But it's everything you just said, though, bro. Like, yeah, it's all pride, bro. And a lot of people can't understand it, and especially like when Passover comes up, it starts to reveal itself more and more in everybody, right? That's why the purging starts to come out. The rebels start to reveal themselves. But I always say there comes a point in time when pride can't see itself no more. If the root get too deep, you might just be shit out of luck.
Con. Yeah, people get puffed up on the little bit of knowledge we have. Con. I mean, you got groups that say they have 144% knowledge or wisdom, that they know everything. When even Paul said, "We prophesy in part, we know in part." Then you also have, like you said down here, no one allows himself to be corrected.
Mm-hmm.
They think they enter a camp and that secures their salvation,
Yep.
or their loyalty to certain men will guarantee their salvation.
Mm-hmm.
Con. And we all seen that if you've been in the truth for any period of time. And we just gotta be happy, but also it should build up our faith, knowing that we can see that, and not condemning anybody. But if the Most High doesn't give someone eyes to be able to see obvious pride, right, then there's nothing we can do to make them see.
Mm-mm.
And this is Sirach chapter 10, just to go along with what you're saying. Verse 12, the beginning of pride is when one departeth from the Most High, and his heart is turned away from his Maker. So, like I was reading earlier, it said we have to be coming in sincerity and in truth. So, a lot of these brothers are very sincere with their motives towards the Most High. Like they want to follow him.
Zealous, not according to knowledge.
Khan. Now I was just telling someone recently as well, like that's my Hebrew name's Kana. It means zeal or zealous. It could also mean jealous, but zeal. And I picked that specifically to remind me. I've always had zeal for the Most High, but as I've said many times before, the videos that me and some brothers would make out street preaching before, I literally had to take them all down because the Most High convicted me. The Most High, I had a moment of kind of like with David and Nathan earlier, where I was talking to a brother, and I'm not even sure if he was talking about me specifically, but he said, "Yeah, when I see these camps, and I can tell that they're in the spirit of pride." When someone comes up and they're engaging them because they want to talk about the Bible, and they end up laughing at them,
Mm-hmm.
they're smiling and they're, oh, this brother doesn't even know this, and ah ha ha. He was like, I know they're in the spirit of pride because the Most High is not going to do that when he has people fishing for souls.
Mm-hmm.
So he told me that, and then I went back and looked at some of the videos and stuff that we had done, and I was like, man, I could just see the spirit of pride on us, and I had to take almost all of them down, right? So, but to go along with what you said, the beginning of pride is when someone starts to depart from the Most High. Verse 13, for pride is the beginning of sin, and he that hath it shall pour out abomination. And therefore Yahweh brought upon them strange calamities and overthrew them utterly. So that's one way to be overthrown for sure, is to be more, to have more allegiance or more loyalty to men than to the Most High or to the truth. Right.
It's a scary way to come in the Passover, though, man.
Oh, calm for sure. All love. I really love my people, and we just got to be humble in every aspect. Con. We just, and that's the thing. That's one huge thing that's missing from the majority of people. But I could say from my own experience as well, when knowledge does puff up, and when I first came into the truth, that's exactly how I was too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not for me or anybody to say, oh, this brother's not going to make it, that sister's not going to make it. But as time progresses and people stay stuck in their ways, it's like they say in the world, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
Mm-hmm.
It starts to look more dark and darker, more grim as time progresses.
You get deeper in that rabbit hole, you just might not get out.
Calm,
It's not to say that you won't, but you might not.
calm. It's a dangerous thing. I was in that prideful mind too, being around family who are heavy in the church, and myself seeing that they don't follow the commandments. The Most High smacked me though.
Oh man.
Hey, the Most High chastens who He loves, so that's a good thing. And I was there at first too because I was the same way with my family coming into the faith. I know more than you, and that kind of attitude, right? Not saying that,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not a way to bring people into the faith.
Okay.
That's a way to push them away from it, and I think that's a lesson that a lot of brothers need to learn.
They be offending the little ones and they don't even be knowing it.
Con. But let's go back to First Corinthians 5. If you want to start on 7 again.
Con. 1 Corinthians 5:7. Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Hamashiach, our Passover, is sacrificed for us.
So whatever your leaven is, I don't know what your leaven is specifically, each of you brothers and sisters, but pray to the Most High that whatever it is, it be revealed to you so that you can sincerely examine yourself and judge yourself as far as, okay, this has to get corrected in order for me to feel worthy, or not even feel worthy, because we're never going to feel 100% worthy, but so that you don't feel unworthy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you'll know, or if you have any type of discernment or any type of conviction, you'll know, like, okay, this needs to get corrected.
Like I can't go in the Passover with this on my mind,
Con,
or this being undone.
con. Go ahead.
Verse 8. Therefore, let us keep the feast not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. I wrote unto you in an epistle not to company with fornicators, yet not altogether with the fornicators of this world, or with the covetous, or extortioners, or with idolaters. For then must ye needs go out of the world. But now I have written unto you not to keep company If any man that is called a brother be a fornicator, or covetous, or an idolater, or a railer, or a drunkard, or an extortioner, with such a one, know not to eat.
So first he said in verse 9 that he's already said not to company with fornicators, not to have company, keep company, be friends with, chilling, hanging out with people that are fornicators, right? Fornicators of the world, covetous, idolaters, etc. But now he's saying not to keep company with anyone who considers himself a brother or sister in the faith if they're a fornicator, if they're covetous, if they're idolaters, railers, drunkards, extortioners. With such a one, know not to eat. So, keeping it in context now, he's speaking about the Passover, right? So, I'm not saying this person, this group, this whatever, but when you see or when I see certain congregations that have, hundreds or even more than 1,000 people at a Passover,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how could you know if you're not accompanying or eating with a fornicator, or if you're not eating with one of the people that fall under this list? Go ahead.
For what have I to do to judge them also that are without?
So everybody in the faith, or not everybody, but you know what I mean, a vast majority of people are judging everybody that aren't in the faith, those that are without knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Like Yahushua said, as I see, I judge, right? It says in the scriptures, establish judgment at the gates. Whether you realize it or not, once you get wisdom and you have these precepts written on your heart, you're looking around and you're like, okay, that dude's gay. Okay, that chick is a harlot. Okay, that man is a sinner. He's eating pork right now. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to say it, but you're judging as you see, right? But how could you, if there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people at the Passover, how could you know if you're not eating with somebody that's a fornicator, right? Or that's an idolater? And that's why I said, of course, every man is going to do as he pleases. Like I say, every man is sovereign in his own house. He's going to be able to do whatever he wants. But you have to eat of that bread and drink of that cup. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're inviting people over or having people over for the Passover in your home that are a part of this list that are fornicators or idolaters, etc., it's going to affect you negatively in one way or another. Go ahead.
For what have I to do to judge them also that are without? Do not ye judge them that are within?
So he's saying we all judge those that are without this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So shouldn't we be judging those that are within, that we call family or we call brothers and sisters? Go ahead.
But them that are without, Yahweh judgeth. Therefore, put away from among yourselves that wicked person.
So Paul is saying for the Passover, reading it in context, you got to put away that wicked person, right? He was warning the church at Corinth against basically tolerating sin among their congregation, right? Especially at Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, right? And he's using leaven metaphorically, right? So he's telling them specifically what he was saying is a fornicator, right? But it could fornication could be physical and it can be spiritual as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he starts with, don't you know, a little leaven is gonna leaven the whole lump, the whole batch of dough. When my rib makes unleavened bread, and when she makes tortillas, it starts with a big old batch of dough, right? You put a little bit of leaven in it, and it's gonna go through all of it, right? So you have to get rid of that old yeast or that old leaven in order for the whole lump not to be affected negatively. Let's go ahead and go to Galatians 5 and 5 and 9.
This is Galatians 5 and 9. A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump.
Actually, Salaki, if you could start on 7.
Con. Verse 7. Ye did right. run well. Who did hinder you that ye should not obey the truth?
So this is, I've seen this so many times over the year, right? Over the years, you'll have brothers or sisters, and they're doing well, and they're on fire for the Most High, and then somebody in one way, shape, or form hinders them from obeying the truth. Could you read that one more time?
Time. Ye did run well. Who did hinder you that ye should not obey the truth?
So let's pretend you come into the faith and you're on fire for the Most High, and you're running down the kingdom's path. But then somebody worldly just come, you see them on the side of the race, and they're like, "Hey man, you want some water?" And you think they're acting like they're trying to help you, but in reality they're slowing you down, and now you're not running well, and now you're not obeying the truth. You're what does it say? What is it? Jeremiah 2, where it says, why trimmest thou thy way? Is it 233?
Yes, 233, I believe.
Kind of says, why trimmest thou thy way to seek love? It could be love of friends, love of family, actual love in a relationship. That's what happens with a lot of people. They're running well, and then they're seeking the love or the acceptance of certain people, even in congregations. And now what happens? They start hindering you. If you could read 7 through 9, Baruch.
Con. Ye did run well. Who did hinder you that ye should not obey the truth? This persuasion cometh not of him that calleth you.
So that does not come of the Most High. Someone hindering you from running well or disobeying the truth. And that goes back to what we were saying, right? About Easter. Are any of y'all got family members still trying to invite you to Easter?
Hey, all my family already know. Don't come to me with none of that. I already told them any holiday that y'all ever seen me grow up celebrating, don't say nothing to me.
I've been out the group text for years.
Yeah, they don't send me nothing.
Right?
Nothing.
Go ahead.
A little leaveneth the whole lump.
A little bit of leaven will leaven the whole lump. Go ahead.
I have confidence in you through the Lord that you will be none otherwise minded. But he that troubleth you shall bear his judgment, whosoever he be. And I, brethren, if I yet preach circumcision, why do I yet suffer persecution? Then is the offense of the cross ceased. I would they were even cut off which trouble you.
So, verse 10, it says, I have confidence in you through Yahushai that you will be none otherwise minded, that you're not going to be otherwise minded. If your mind is set on the Most High, if your mind is set on keeping Passover, if your mind is set on following after Him, on keeping the law, statutes, commandments, precepts to the best of your ability, I have confidence in you through Yahushua that you'll stick to that, right? But he that troubles you, those that are trying to hinder you, like it says in verse 7, those that are trying to trouble you is going to bear their judgment. Whosoever he be. Doesn't matter if it's somebody in the world, doesn't matter if it's somebody, a family member, a so-called old friend or acquaintance, doesn't matter if it's somebody that claims to be in the truth. If they're hindering you, they're going to bear their judgment. And verse 12, I just like that verse. I would they were even cut off, which trouble you. Right? Because like the brother was saying earlier, a lot of people are offending the little ones, meaning those that are newer to the faith. They offend them and they kind of push them away from the faith because of the way that they act, because of the way that they speak, because of the way that they treat other people. And that's not of the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and go to Luke chapter 12 and 1 to go along with that real quick. Now I'm going to read this real quick. This is 1 Corinthians 15 and 33. It says, be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Sometimes all it takes is for one person to come along and have some type of evil communication with you, and that corrupts your good manners, your the way way you're striving to follow the Most High corrupts your spirit. You feel it. Let's say somebody says something disrespectful to you and you were at peace, and now you're angry. You're completely out the spirit. All it took was that one evil communication. And that's why, again, like I said many times, the most reiterated law in the Torah is to be set apart, to be holy. Go ahead.
It's Luke 12:1. In the meantime, when there were gathered together an innumerable multitude of people, insomuch that they trode one upon another, he began to say unto his disciples, first of all, beware ye of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy.
So the leaven of the Pharisees. This is Yahushua speaking, right? If you can get Matthew 7:5, I believe, maybe 4, it says thou hypocrite.
Mm-hmm.
So it says there was an innumerable multitude. There was so many that they were trotting upon each other. They were stepping on each other, bumping into each other, and all that, right? And he said in front of all of them, he was saying, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Because the Pharisees were hypocrites. They would teach the law, but the way that they were acting and living was not through the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai.
This is Matthew 7:5. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye.
So what Yahushua is saying here is to first fix yourself, first get rid of your leaven, and then you can help your brother or sister get rid of their leaven. Because what I've seen happen many times in the past is you'll have someone newer to the faith, especially, and obviously it can happen to anybody, no matter how long you've been in the truth. But you'll have somebody newer to the faith, and they're over here telling somebody about, oh, you got to keep Sabbath, or you can't eat pork. You can't eat pork. It's in the law. It says this, that, and the other. But then they're moving in a spirit of pride, or then they're doing things that are contrary to the word. So now you got the person that you're trying to quote unquote help, and they're looking at you like, bro, this person is doing this, and they're telling me not to do this. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that happen so many times that that comes back to the leaven of the Pharisees, because that's what the Pharisees were doing. If you want to go back to Luke 12. Khan, the blind leading the blind in that's Khan, for sure.
They both get the same punishment.
They both fall into the pit, right?
Yep. It's Luke 12:1. In the meantime, when there were gathered together an innumerable multitude of people, insomuch that they trode one upon another, he began to say unto his disciples, first of all, beware ye of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. Therefore, whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear in closets shall be proclaimed upon the housetops.
So this is exactly what Nathan was telling David, right? He said, because you did this thing and you did it in the darkness, and now all Israel is going to see it in the light. So the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy, is something that the Most High reveals. So if we judge ourselves, going back to 1 Corinthians 11, which what we started with, if we judge ourselves, then we don't have to be judged. If we examine ourselves and correct it, then things like that don't have to come to the light. Let's go to Exodus. I'm probably gonna make one more point, and then if anybody has any questions, you could post them up now, and we'll get back to them. If not, we're just gonna read a few more precepts and close it out. It's a very simple concept, but obviously, con 12, and we're gonna start on 37. So it's a very simple concept. Examine yourself, judge yourself, remove the leaven from yourself. But obviously, like most things, it's easier said than done. It's easier understood than actually lived out.
Because it takes humility to do that.
Con,
and honesty.
con.
It says Exodus chapter 12, starting at verse 37. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men, beside children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt and could not tarry. Neither had they prepared for themselves any victual.
So this is when they were leaving out of Egypt. Okay, they had to make unleavened cakes of dough, and it was not leavened. Why? Because they were thrust out of Egypt. They could not tarry. They had to do it as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The Most High said, "Get out of there now. You get out of there as soon as possible." Right. So obviously, this is a true physical, historically provable story. But again, it has polysemy, and going back to this is like the first unleavened bread or feast of unleavened bread, so to speak. Us taking this and using this spiritually and symbolically. If you want to get Sirach 5 and 7,
Hmm.
we have to look at it spiritually, symbolically. When you realize that the Most High wants to get you away from certain sin, wants to get you away from certain leaven, etc., you can't tarry. You have to do it as fast as you can. Go ahead.
This is Sirach chapter 5, verse 7. Make no tarrying to turn to the Most High, and put not off from day to day. For suddenly shall the wrath of the Lord come forth, and in thy security thou shalt be destroyed and perish in the day of vengeance.
So, if somebody, the example I always give, right? If somebody's in the middle of the street and there's an 18-wheeler coming and I say, get out the street, and they don't want to, the only reason they don't want to, well, either they're suicidal or they think they're safe, right? Most people ain't suicidal. They think they're safe. They think they're going to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what people think. It says, in thy security thou shalt be destroyed and perish in the day of vengeance. A lot of people think like, oh, well, I have more time. But you never know when that day of vengeance can come. People die every single day, every single minute, every single second.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't make any tarrying to turn to the Most High. We can't put it off from day to day, right? I can't tell you how many times, even I could think of two people that, man, I really care about, that are family and stuff, and they both said the same thing. Well, I'll get there one day. And it's like, do you really think you'll get there one day?
Nope.
If you have that attitude, then you won't. Because I've seen it's like when I was training people to fight in like the fighters classes for MMA, right? And I would ask them, okay, or I would tell them like, all right, well, we're gonna train 2-3 times a day. Say this day we're gonna train twice. This day we're gonna train 3 times. You don't need to be eating this. You need to eat this much of this. You need to drink this much water. You need to be electrolytes, blah blah blah, all this stuff, right? You got to stop doing this. And someone would be like, all right, cool, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Some of them would be like, I'm gonna try.
Yeah, saying I'm gonna try it means no.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
It's
You
an
know what I mean?
automatic no.
It's an automatic. Yeah, maybe for a little bit I will, but if someone says they're gonna try, they're gonna be way less likely to actually do it. And that's why when it's like, if I told somebody, oh, Sabbath, teach them about the Sabbath. If they say, yeah, I'm gonna try to keep it, you already know what that means, right?
Automatic no. Like, all right, well, okay.
So we can't. The point though is, we can't make any tarrying. Tarrying meaning exactly what it says, putting it off from day to day. You can't say, oh, I have tomorrow, I have the next day, because we don't know if we're gonna have the next day. And that goes back to what we were saying. If you could get James 4 and 13 or 14, that goes back to what we were saying in Sirach 10, 12, and 13. Pride is the beginning of all sin. It's a prideful thing. It's a prideful assumption To think that the Most High is going to give you the opportunity to do tomorrow what He already gave you the opportunity to do today.
Mm-hmm.
And look, someone just said that's where pride, Khan, that's where pride comes in. Especially when you least expect it, like them people driving on that bridge and it just came down unexpected.
Yeah, that's how it happens.
Khan,
Catch you when you're lacking. Or
Khan,
how they say
Khan,
in the world, for lack of better terms, caught you with your pants down.
Khan. That's what I say as well, Ak. To try is a no go. It's either you do or you don't.
Didn't I just say something the other
Khan,
day? Almost right is always wrong. Half truth is always a lie. So somebody say try that, it's automatic no. It's
Khan.
either hot or cold.
And that's why Yahushua said, let your yea be yea or your nay be nay. Anything more than that comes of evil.
Mm-hmm. Ain't no middle ground, buddy.
Right? It's that's something that my rib and my oldest daughter know I always say as well. It's always a no if it's not a yes.
Yep.
Until it's a yes, it's a no.
Automatically.
It's a no. But Khan, there is no guarantee of tomorrow.
This is James chapter 4, verse 13. Says, "Go to now, ye that say, today or tomorrow we will go into such a city and continue there a year and buy and sell and get gain."
So a lot of people think of that, oh well, in a week I'll do this and it'll be good for me. It says we'll get gain, we'll buy, we'll sell, whatever, right? But it could be anything like, oh, next week I'll follow the Most High. You know what? I just read this. Maybe tomorrow I'll start applying that. Maybe next month, once this stuff falls into place, then I'll start doing this. Go ahead.
Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away.
So it's asking a question, what is your life? Like you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. It's like a vapor. It's here for a little time and then it's gone. And none of us know when it's gone. That's the thing.
For that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that.
So because of that, because our life is a vapor, because we don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, right? The whole country could shut down tomorrow for all we know.
Mm-hmm.
The whole world could shut down tomorrow for all we wasn't the whole C-19 thing. It happened overnight,
Mm-hmm.
basically,
Yeah, it did actually.
right? So we don't know when that's gonna happen. We don't know when any of these prophecies are gonna happen. So we should be living like, okay, today, what can I do to follow the Most High? What have I learned that I've been tarrying from, that I've been putting off day to day? Because if you continue to put it off day to day, you're showing that you think you're secure when none of us are secure.
Con. True story.
If you fail, then there's an opportunity to employ faith and discipline and discernment and drive. Khan, I had seen something earlier, and it was basically saying like, how do you get over the fear of failure? And the chick said, I don't even know who it was, but she said, fail faster. And she was like, if you do, she was basically saying the same thing. She was like, if you are scared to do something, right? But you know if it is successful, it's good for you, do it anyways. And if you fail, at least you know you tried, because obviously there's the pain of regret,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the pain of failure. And the pain of failure is never as bad as the pain of regret, because you always be wondering if it was regret.
Yeah, the pain of failure eventually goes away. Regret
Con,
regret never goes
con.
away.
But the last thing she said basically was that it's like muscle memory. If you're scared to do something and you don't do it because you're scared, then you're gonna live like that for the rest of your life. You're gonna be, oh, I'm scared of it, I'm not gonna do it. Oh, I'm in fear, I'm not gonna do it. So she basically said, do it faster, and you're gonna train it like muscle memory to where you're like, oh, I'm fearing something, but you know what? I'm gonna do it anyways. There's an opportunity for good. I'm gonna do it anyways. So she basically said, fail faster. I wouldn't say fail faster, but if something's good, right, like tarrying to turn to the Most High, obviously it's a good thing to turn to the Most High. So you should do it and apply the laws, statutes, commandments, precepts to the best of your ability as quickly as you can.
It's like the post. He had sent me a post one time. It was a like MMA fighter, but in the caption it said impatience with taking action, but patient with the results.
Oh, con.
Obviously, you got to use wisdom on whatever you're trying to take action on.
Con.
But like how you saying, just don't wait forever in a day, because there comes a point in time where waiting too long can actually hurt you. Like actually, I think I was reading it in the Art of War recently, where basically it was saying the same exact thing. It was saying that nothing good ever comes from waiting too long.
Con. Con. And that's like what we were talking about timing when we were training the other day with my cousin Javi.
That spoke to me though, bro. When you said that the other day, bro, it was funny. Like I didn't know I needed to hear that day. I was like, oh damn.
Con. So basically, like in fighting, right? If you know what I was saying is, so we were using Isaiah. Well, we did what for a couple of days. We went over, or we just went over that, right?
Isaiah 33.
Yeah, Isaiah 33:6, where it says, "Knowledge and wisdom shall be the stability of your times." Right. So this brother and then two other dudes that have been coming in training, I was saying like y'all already have the knowledge of throwing a 1-2, a jab cross. You have the knowledge 1-2. If I say 1-2, you're gonna throw 1-2. You throw it with decent technique, right? But knowledge and wisdom will be the stability of your time. So wisdom is being able to apply that 1-2 in pretty much any situation. So if I'm going backwards and I plant my foot, I could throw 1-2. If I'm coming forward, I could throw 1-2. If I dodge a punch to the left or to the right, and you could throw a 1-2, that becomes a wisdom because wisdom's the application of knowledge. But in order for it to be wisdom, you have to have stability or you have to have balance, right? That's what stability is. So it says knowledge and wisdom is the stability of your times. So without stability, without staying stable in your stance, in your fighting stance, it doesn't matter what position you're in. If you're unstable and you throw a 1-2, it's not going to be good. They're going to counter you. They're going to take you down. They're going to kick your legs out from under you. But then on top of that, you have to have timing. Mm-hmm. So you have to have the knowledge and you have to have the stability, and then it becomes wisdom. But then after that, because there's levels to fighting, you got to learn the timing of it, right? And there's a perfect time to counter a punch. Just like there's a time where you're gonna be, if you have scriptures written on the table of your heart, it's gonna pop up in your head. A situation arises and you're like, oh, this verse says this, I should not do this. Mm-hmm. And or this verse says this, I should do this. And at that point in time, it becomes like a test or a trial to where, okay, are you gonna actually listen to that discernment, or are you gonna go against it? Mm-hmm. And when you go against discernment, I'm sure many of y'all have learned it's not gonna work out. And then later on, you're like, man, I knew it. Yep. Right. But anyways, let's go to Sirach 21:2. Sirach 21:2. So we can't make tarrying to turn to the Most High. We have to have timing, and timing does come with discernment, obviously.
Say, hit it hard, even if you don't know what you're doing, man. Just hit it, and then it'll work itself out along the way. This is Sirach chapter 21, verse 2. Flee from sin as from the face of a serpent, for if thou comest too near it, it will bite thee. The teeth thereof are as the teeth of a lion, slaying the souls of men.
So we have to understand that sin is like a lion. If it bites you, if you get bit on one of your main arteries or your jugular or something like that, you're going to bleed out before they even get to you, right? But it says flee from sin as from the face of a serpent. This is all going back to in Egypt, right? It said they couldn't tarry there. They had to leave very quickly, which is why it was unleavened bread. So Sirach 5:7 says, make no tarrying to turn to Yahweh. Sirach 21:2 says, flee from sin. Also, you don't tarry if you flee from something, right? It was like Joseph when he had to flee from the married woman, right? He fled from her so quickly that he left part of his garment in her hand. She tore it.
Mm-hmm. Got up out of there. Verse 3. All iniquity is as a two-edged sword. The wounds whereof cannot be healed.
So iniquity is like a two-edged sword. If someone sticks a sword into you and it's got blades on both sides, it's gonna cut you. It's really making like 3 cuts. The point is making a cut.
1, 2, 3, 4. So really about 4 because you put it in and put it back out. Sheesh.
So that's not going to be a good thing. You're gonna want to flee from it as fast as possible. Go ahead and get Psalm 70:1. I'm just gonna get a couple more precepts and then we'll go ahead and close it out.
It's a painful way to get stuck right there, boy.
Come.
Psalms chapter 70, verse 1. Make haste, O Yahweh, to deliver me. Make haste to help me, O Yahweh.
So, how many of y'all have been in a certain situation where you quickly turn to the Most High to try and get you out of it? You quickly pray to Him. You are so quick to be like, man, can you get me out of this situation? Make haste to deliver me. Make haste to help me. Right? I know I've said before, I remember a couple times, 2 different times where I was in jail and I was like, I got in there and I was praying like, man, let me go to sleep and wake up and this is a dream. Real quick to want that from the Most High. We're real quick to ask Him for things. We want His hand. We're quick to ask for His hand, but we're not as quick to follow His word a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to learn that we can't be real hasty, or if we're not hasty to follow what His mouth says, then we're not going to be hasty to receive of His hands, His blessings as well. Um, Go ahead and go to Psalm 119 and 60. Psalm 119 and 60.
Psalm chapter 119, verse 60. I made haste and delayed not to keep thy commandments.
So this is how we have to be. If we're going to make haste to ask the Most High to help us, we're going to make haste to ask Him to deliver us from certain things, if we're going to make haste to ask for blessings, then we have to make haste and don't delay to keep His commandments. Because a lot of times, I know in the past it's happened to me, I'm sure it's happened to you as well, and many, if not all of y'all as well, where you'll read something and like you haven't been applying it, or you've been going against it, and at that point in time, that's where your test starts.
Yep, you know better now what you're gonna do.
Yep. So are you gonna make haste? There's really only 2 options. You're gonna make haste or you're gonna delay. You want to read it one more time?
Con, I made haste and delayed not to keep thy commandments.
So we have to make haste and not delay to keep His commandments and His precepts, because there's a lot of people out there that, well, what law is that? Show me in the law, right? And you know what one of them is? Go. You want to get Jeremiah 51?
Con.
Jeremiah 51 and 6. That's one that well, show me that in the law.
It's one of my favorite verses. Literally, it's like go to. It's very simple. Jeremiah 51 and 6. Flee out of the midst of Babylon.
What's Babylon, Ak?
Mystery Babylon. Wonder where that's at. And deliver every man his soul.
So pause right there. So it says, flee out of the midst of Babylon, the middle of Babylon. Now, mystery Babylon, which some will say it's here or there or wherever, low here, low there. But America with the 3 Ks,
KKK,
is mystery Babylon, and that's why the Most High is showing us that His judgment is going to come with the whole solar eclipse thing. With man, we could get into a whole different topic right now, but I won't. We must flee from the midst of Babylon to deliver our souls, right? So obviously that starts with spiritually, as far as coming out of what Babylon teaches and what they believe, white Jesus and Christianity, modern Christianity. Because we know that we strive to be real, quote unquote, Christians, even though I don't like to use that word, because a Christian, like I've said before too, this brother's from Tennessee, but how long have you lived in Texas?
Shit, I've been in Texas now since 2021. So what, 3 years now?
Okay, so some would say he's like a Texan now. Does that mean he was born in Texas? No, but if he's acting like someone from Texas, he's a Texan. So we strive to be Christians, as in following in Christ's example, Yahushua's example,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we have to follow after his example, not after Christianity, not after what Babylon teaches, because Babylon teaches a whole bunch of confusion. That's what Babylon is.
Yeah, you confused.
So that's why everybody, they spoke all different languages in Babylon, and they couldn't even understand each other.
Mm-hmm.
But so spiritually, first and foremost, but also it is a very wise thing to flee out of the midst of Babylon, meaning all these huge cities, because that is where the most wrath and the majority of these prophecies are going to be coming to pass, where thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are going to die.
It's crazy though, cause like people, it's kind of like how you said with the whole with majority of things in the truth, but specifically recently you had mentioned the whole predestination free will thing.
Oh, con.
How people are either like all the way one side or all the way the other side, but there's no balance.
Yeah.
It's also the same with this verse as well too. People is you either have people who are spiritually coming out of Babylon 110% and not doing nothing physical, or you got people who come out physically but they still holding on to Babylon ways, and both of them are bad in my personal understanding.
Con.
You gotta have a just balance.
Con. And that's something I was talking about in the whole eclipse thing as well. Like obviously spiritually, first and foremost is what you're gonna have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But then it does make sense. A prudent man foresees the evil to come out the midst of the cities, because that, well, I went over what is it? Second Ezra's 15:14 down, where it talks about the things that are gonna be happening. People are gonna be spoiling each other, killing each other. Their actions are gonna stand in their own hands, because police aren't gonna be able to do nothing. Because
Mm-hmm.
think about it, if we were, obviously we wouldn't be police officers, but if all hell's breaking loose, we have families too.
Yeah, I am the police out here.
So if we're actual police officers, you think we're going to care about some people stealing from someone else? No, we're going to be trying to take care of our own household,
Yeah,
right?
I ain't gonna be worried about none of that stuff, bro, at
and
all.
and that's actually, like, that reminds me. Oh, it's on that phone. I had seen there's a I think it was called Fulton Mall in Manhattan. It's the newest mall in New York City. It costs over $1 billion to build.
Mm-mm.
Okay, I had just seen it earlier today. Actually, I was gonna make a post about it, but maybe I will in the next few days. They're gonna close down the mall, even though it costs over $1 billion, because they have such a big shoplifting problem, and they can't stop the people that are shoplifting. So
Of
all the
course
people,
not.
so all the people that are in the mall, the people that they're gonna break their leases, and they're gonna close down the mall. And now the mall is trying to sue the people that are gonna break their leases, but it's like it's because so many people are shoplifting, and the cops aren't doing nothing about it. But the point that goes along with that is that's prophesied as well. Like people are gonna be spoiling, they're gonna be stealing, they're gonna stand, their actions are gonna stand in their own power,
Mm-hmm.
right? And think about it like this too. If that happened in a bunch of cities and they close down these malls and stuff, if there's no stores to steal from, who are they gonna steal from?
You the next best thing, buddy.
You know what I mean?
You a walk-in store, buddy. That's why I say like people use the verse, but they don't really understand where it says, "Be like a pilgrim on the earth."
Con,
What were the pilgrims doing? They were living off the land. You
dude.
can't live off the land in the urban smart city.
Yeah, for real. And guess what? Pilgrims were thieves too.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Con. But if you want to read that and keep going down.
Con. It says, "Flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of Yahweh's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense."
So if you stay in the midst of Babylon spiritually as well, and you know, the majority of our families, just to be straight up, our blood families, they're living like Babylonians. They're idolaters. They're all the everything that the Babylonians were doing back then. That's how they're living, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to flee out of the midst from being surrounded by them, and that's why pertaining to Passover specifically. Actually, we'll end with that in First Ezra 7. But let's finish this first. Um, in First Ezra 7, they were in captivity, but they came out from among those people that were living wickedly, before Passover so that they could be sanctified, they could be set apart, and then they kept the Passover.
Kind of like what happened to me when my first time keeping Passover. The Most High set me apart specifically for it, and He purged me so bad. Talking about pruning and cutting branches off and all that shit. Man. Keep going.
Con.
Verse 7. Babylon hath been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine. Therefore the nations are mad. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her. Take balm for her pain. If so be she may be healed.
So Babylon's fall will come suddenly, and that's why we shouldn't be. That's why we should flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul, so we won't be cut off in her iniquity. All right, but let's go to First Ezra 7 and get the verse right now. It's like 10 or 11.
Babylon gonna get it.
It says, Khan, that one time I prayed and asked for faith, and the next day I took an Uber and left my phone in the car. It was late at night, so I had to really put faith in the Most High to get my phone back. It was hard. Khan, but that's the thing. When you ask for faith, He's going to test your faith. You ask to be stronger, He's going to put you through something that makes you stronger, right?
You ask for wisdom, He's gonna give you problems to solve.
Yep, look at what happened with Solomon,
Yeah.
right?
And you better not ask for patience. That's all I'm gonna say.
Khan. Was that video on Fulton Mall by Cash Jordan? I saw. I'm not sure who it was from. I just saw like the first maybe minute of it. I think it was like 15 minutes long, but yeah, I just saw it. It was over $1 billion to make the mall, and they said it's the newest mall in New York City, and it's in Manhattan. So it's like a bunch of rich people there, and you had people. I only saw, like I said, like a minute, maybe a minute of it, and it was just people just walking in, grabbing, filling up bags, and walking out. And one of the dudes said, like, man, the cops take forever to come and all this stuff, and then they just said they were gonna close it down.
I think they just made a show or something like that, bro, with that dude off of the Book of Clarence, bro. People were shoplifting in New York out of a mall. I think that might have been the same one.
But that's the same thing that was happening in Los Angeles too, because they were doing like flash mobs.
Yeah.
They were using, I forgot what app they said, if it was Telegram or something like that, where they were just actually, even people didn't even know each other. Hey, we're gonna meet up at this store and we're all gonna let's rob the iPhone store.
Finna go heat it up.
So that's just a precursor of what's to come, though. If that's happening now, while law and order, quote unquote, is still
Purge.
good, yeah, the purge, obviously, something that I think everybody can see with spiritual eyes is going to come, right? And if you just read Second Ezra 15 and 16, that's all prophesied.
For sure.
But yeah, if you want to start on 10.
This is First Ezra chapter 7, verse 10. And the children of Israel that were of the captivity held the Passover, the 14th day of the first month. After that, the priests and the Levites were sanctified.
So they kept it the 14th day of the first month, after the priests and Levites were sanctified, were cleansed, were set apart, became holy, because they were in captivity, if you read the whole thing. And just to throw this out there, because I just remembered a couple people asked on Instagram on the little question thing, we're going to keep it so around the 9th, either the 9th or the 10th, we should be able to see the moon. And then we go 14 days from there, because this is the first new moon after spring started. Right? Spring started, was it the 19th?
Yeah, March 19th when it started.
Okay, March 19th. So then we went the first moon after that, which will be, like I said, in less than 2 weeks.
April 8th, I believe. Or it's April. Yeah. It's either April 8th or April 9th.
Yeah, the 8th is the dark moon.
Okay, so yeah.
So the 9th or the 10th, we should be able to see it.
Roughly the 10th. Yeah.
Con. So once we see it, then we'll count the 14 days. That's how we go off of it. And again, like it says in the scriptures, we're not judging any man in meat or drink or observance of holy days. I know a couple brothers that told me they were keeping it, I believe, Friday or Saturday this past week. Right? We're all rehearsing the righteous acts. And all I would say about that is, don't take my word for it. Don't take an elder's word for it or some congregation's word for it. because that's something that, oh, well, why are you keeping it this day? Oh, because this brother said this, whatever. Yeah, look, check out this video.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how we should be. All right,
Search it for yourself.
Con. But go ahead.
Con. Verse 11. They that were of the captivity were not all sanctified together, but the Levites were all sanctified together.
So we're all in captivity right now. And if you're not sanctified, then you shouldn't keep the Passover, because you could be eating damnation to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you look up that word sanctified, it means to be made holy. It means to be set apart. It means to be clean as we can be. So again, none of us are perfect. All of us sin and come short of the glory of the Most High. But at the same time, we can't use that as an excuse. And you should know, like, if I'm struggling with this, all right, I have to get this right, or I cannot keep Passover.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Verse 12. And so they offered the Passover for all them of the captivity, and for their brethren the priests, and for themselves. And the children of Israel, they came out of the captivity, did eat, even all they that had separated themselves from the abominations of the people of the land, and sought the Most High.
So the ones that were sanctified, it says they kept the feast for their brethren, the priests, and for themselves. So I was talking to a brother last week about his rib maybe not being able to keep the Passover because she has her cycle at that time, which would be considered unclean. And on the Sabbath days, with the days that are considered holy days, Sabbaths, she shouldn't be keeping it. So basically, what I told him and what I know many brothers do and have done in the past is, as a man, you are covering to your household, you're covering to your wife. So we can keep the feast for our household.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, if they can keep it, then they should keep it.
Mm-hmm.
But if for whatever reason the Most High makes them unclean and you have to keep it for them, that's the purpose for a woman of having a head, whether it be her father, whether it be her husband,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's accounts of them doing that all throughout the law, which again I went over in the other Passover video, where it's speaking more about keeping it. But there's accounts of that, and that's also goes back to the three holy, what we would consider the holiest days, because the Israelite men had to go before the Most High and go to the Holy Land to keep them.
Yeah.
It was Passover, Pentecost, and Feast of Tabernacles.
Mm-hmm.
So those 3 days, those three holy days, when they had to go back to the Holy Land, back then they didn't have cars, they didn't have planes, they didn't have buses. It wasn't like as easy as it is for us. If it's like, oh, I got money, let's catch a flight over there.
Now they had to foot it.
They had, yeah, exactly. So they were or riding on camels or on asses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So and you think about it, back then, men had multiple wives, had a bunch of children. You know how hard it would be for them to take their whole families over there. So the point uh, is, a man can keep the feast for his household, right? And that's what they were doing. And then 13, it says, if you want to read 13 one more time, Baba Kashaw.
Con. And the children of Israel, they came out of the captivity, did eat, even all they that had separated themselves from the abominations of the people of the land, and sought the Most High.
Khan. So everyone that separated themselves from the abominations of the people of the land and were seeking after the Most High in sincerity and in truth, like it says in First Corinthians, they ate of the Passover. Because even though it didn't say this in First Ezra 7, even though Yahushua hadn't come, they knew the severity and the seriousness of keeping the Passover.
That's why it's a solemn feast day.
Khan, go ahead and read 14.
And they kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days, making merry before the Most High. Or go ahead.
Salakia. So I believe is it the last day?
This is the last day of the month.
The last day is the solemn
From what I had counted.
Khan. So they were making merry before the Most High, though. Why? Go ahead and read 15.
For that he had turned the counsel of the king of Assyria towards them, to strengthen their hands in the works of the Most High God of Israel.
So another question I got from a couple people was, should I keep it in the house I'm in, but it's filled with wickedness and I can't get the leaven out the bread? Or I can't get the leaven out of the house, right? I'm going to have unleavened bread, but I can't get the leaven out the house. I'm living with wickedness. There's idols in my house, etc., right? So this in verse 15, it says that the Most High turned the counsel of the king of Assyria that were in the Syrian captivity. He turned the mind or put the thoughts, like it says in Proverbs 16:1, on the king of Assyria to allow these people to keep the feast, right? They allowed them to go out of the captivity, like it says in 13. They came out of the captivity and separated themselves, and then they kept the feast. So we should be striving to do the same thing. And the Most High, if the Most High can do this to a king, a wicked king, and benefit them to keep the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, then he can do that for anybody. So what I would say to that question, to those that were actually sincerely striving to keep it, I would say that you should find a congregation or a small group of people that are going to keep it and keep it with them, because you have to separate yourselves from the abominations of the people of the land. If you want to go ahead and read that smooth through 10 all the way down to 15, Babu Kashar.
Come. And the children of Israel that were of the captivity held the Passover the 14th day of the first month. After that, the priests and the Levites were sanctified. They that were of the captivity were not all sanctified together, but the Levites were all sanctified together. And so they offered the Passover for all them of the captivity, and for their brethren the priests, and for themselves. And the children of Israel that came out of the captivity did eat, even all they that had separated themselves from the abominations of the people of the land, and sought the Most High. And they kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days, making merry before Yahweh, for that he had turned the counsel of the king of Assyria towards them to strengthen their hands in the works of the Lord God of Israel.
So what do you get from that, Ak? What do you your understanding that's very important?
Well, I mean, for starters, it mentions being sanctified most importantly. So that's the first thing that it talks about. I know from my personal experience, from the first time I kept Passover to leading up to this one, since I've been walking this walk, most important thing is definitely making sure you purging your leaven out as much as you possibly can.
Con.
Just like the brother said, if you're around people who are not following the word, and even if they are following the word, if they got a lot of leaven inside of them and it's clear that they're not working on getting it out, right? Separate yourself to the best of your ability, pray to the Most High, and look for like-minded individuals.
Con.
Worst comes to worst, right? It's better to not eat unworthily than to eat unworthily. So if worst comes to worst and you're not able to keep it for whatever reason, pray to the Most High, ask for forgiveness, ask Him to spare you, um, and then of course at the end of the day, um, just make sure you're doing it with a sincere spirit. A lot of people I've seen this past year. It was actually another brother, two brothers actually from camps actually reached out to me and told me this. They said they felt like last year's Passover, and this is how I know Instagram is like high school, bro. Everything gets around so quick.
Con.
They said they felt like last year's Passover, everybody was making it about costumes and garments and stuff like that. So I say make sure you're doing it with a sincere spirit intentionally, because it's a solemn feast day, which means it's very serious. It's not something you're going to celebrate. It's a memorial. It's a monument to memorize and to symbolize what the Messiah had to go through for us. So that's my point of view on everything and what I get from the scriptures.
Con. And I agree with you. And just to add a second witness to that, uh, before I got on the call and I was talking to a sister, and I said the same thing as far as, and she was agreeing because she said she was part or affiliated with the camp, which I won't say, but you know what camp I'm talking about.
Yep.
And before I even knew about that, I was like, well, yeah, if you look at the way that they keep Passover for the past few years, I've already been thinking that, like, they, yes, it's Passover, but they make it seem almost as if it's like it's Easter Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and they're getting dressed up and doing all the. Do you really think the Israelites had the time when they're getting thrust out of Egypt to go ahead and get all dressed up and make sure I got a good garment and we got to be matching outfits? And that's not what it was about, right?
Mm-mm.
And
Wrong intentions, man.
and funny but not funny, you know what I mean? But yeah, I agree with you. It's better to not keep it than to eat to yourself damnation. And you never know if the Most High doesn't want you to keep it. Maybe
For a
the
reason.
the following. It's definitely for a reason. But then maybe the following month, because there is a makeup Passover, like I said,
Yep.
the 14th day of the second month. Maybe you can keep it then. Maybe you can't. But either way, everything is of the Most High, and that's His will is gonna be done no matter what, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on the first and seventh day we aren't to work due to the holy convocation, but for days in between we can work. Yeah, you can work in between. On the seventh day of Feast of Unleavened Bread, in that same day is the evening is Passover or the next day.
On
Okay.
the seventh day of the feast, so the
I
last day, which I figured out it was the 30th. I think 30th was the last day of the month of April.
so
From when we're keeping it at least.
if you want to go to Leviticus 23, I think I know what you're asking.
Is it?
23 and 6.
Okay.
Actually, I got it. So I'm gonna start on verse 5. This is Leviticus 23 and 5. You let me know if I'm answering your question, what I think you're asking. In the 14th day of the first month at even is Yahweh's Passover. So, because I was getting that question too. I'm glad you said that. Even this, if this ain't the question you're asking, I was getting that question multiple times. They were saying, is it 7 days or is it 8 days? It's 8 days in total,
Yeah,
because
technically.
you got the Passover, and then you have 7 days of Feast of Unleavened Bread, right? So it says, in the 14th day of the first month at even is Yahweh's Passover. So that 14th day, which, like we said, it's I'm thinking it's going to be the 23rd, but it could be the 24th if we don't see the light. Then it says, on the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread unto Yahweh. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. Now, this is where people kind of get confused, because the Feast of Unleavened Bread starts on the 15th day, but you still eat unleavened bread on the 14th day, because the unleavened bread represents Yahweh Shai. He said, take this bread, it's his body,
Right. Yep.
right? Verse 7, in the first day ye shall have a holy convocation, ye shall do no servile work therein. But you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh 7 days. In the seventh day is a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. So people take this verse, I know, differently. Certain congregations, camps, groups, brothers, etc. The first day is a holy convocation. You don't do no servile work. The last day, the seventh day, is a holy convocation. You do no servile work. But because it says, ye shall offer an offering made by fire until Yahweh 7 days, there are brothers and sisters that say, okay, well, my offering is like, we obviously don't offer up sacrifices. I'm not going to do no servile work throughout all those days. If you do that, then that's fine. That's up to you. But according to this, the first day and the last day, we're not supposed to do work there, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in total, it's 8 days. The first day's Passover, from the 14th at even to the 15th at even. Then at the from the 15th for the next 7 days to the 21st, the end of the 21st, which will be going into the 22nd day, is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Warrior's Dream, most definitely thinking on Messiah and his sacrifice on that day.
Mm-hmm.
Khan. I was trying to get clarity on that. Is Feast of Unleavened Bread on the next day after the lamb is to be killed and roasted, or is unleavened bread the following? Yeah, it's the following day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 8 days in total, but it says, because it's really two separate feasts, or feast days, what they call them. You have the Passover, and then you have the Feast of Unleavened Bread the next day, which starts the 7 days.
And the easiest way I like to explain it, I like to explain it visually. um, like how it says in the scriptures, at even on the 14th day is when it starts. So when the sun goes down on the the end of the 13th day, that's the start or the beginning of the 14th day. So since that's the beginning, the sun goes up and then it goes back down. That whole time period from when the sun went up and went back down, that was Passover right then and there. And then now when the sun goes back up, then every day after that, right, the next 7 days, that's unleavened bread.
Okay, Khan. I get it. Gotcha. The water. Khan. I'll praise the Most High. So let's actually finish in Ephesians 4. Let's go over a couple real quick. Just go over a couple different forms of leaven. I was reading Ephesians 4 earlier, and I mean, not specifically to go along with this lesson, but I was just like, man, this is going over a whole bunch of different forms of leaven in one chapter. It's probably maybe like 10 verses. If you want to start on 17. So we're going to finish with this. If y'all have any other questions, you can go ahead and ask in the comments and we'll answer them. If not, then we're going to finish here in Ephesians 4.
Kind. Says a lot of different forms of living.
Con.
Verse 17. This I say therefore and testify in the Lord that ye henceforth walk not as other Gentiles. Walk, Shalakia, that ye henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk in the vanity of their mind.
So first thing it says is from henceforth, from here on out, don't walk like Gentiles walk in the vanity of their mind. Vain is the root of the word vanity. Vain is unprofitable, worldly. My favorite definition of it is breathly, right? Breathly. It's like that's of this world, right? So it says not to walk in the vanity of their mind. You could walk in vain things or you can walk in wisdom, which is the scriptures, right? So when you're walking in the vanity of your mind, that's your thoughts that are against what the scriptures say to do, to put it as simply as possible. So that's the first thing. That's one form of leaven. I'm gonna walk, I'm gonna live, because walking is an action, right? I'm going to live according to whatever pops up in my mind. Oh, I want to do this. Yeah, it's against the scriptures, but I'm gonna walk in that. I'm gonna walk in fear. Oh, that's against the scriptures, but I'm gonna walk in that. I'm gonna walk in lasciviousness. Well, that's against the scriptures, but I'm gonna walk in that. So that's one form of leaven. Walking according to your own mind instead of according to the scriptures. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of Yahweh through the ignorance that is in them.
So there's ignorance, Salaki. There's ignorance in us, or there's wisdom in the Most High. So when you're walking in the vanity of your own mind, right, you're walking in your ignorance. Go ahead.
Because of the blindness of their heart.
So there's nothing more deceitful than your heart, right? That's what it says in Jeremiah. Go ahead.
Who being past feeling have given themselves over unto lasciviousness to work all uncleanness with greediness.
So lasciviousness, uncleanness, greediness, these are all forms of leaven, right? And lasciviousness, man, no matter where you go, you're going to see lasciviousness, right? No matter where you go, you're going to see uncleanness. You're going to see greediness. That's one of the biggest problems with social media. People are greedy of what they see, right? How many people are on social media and they're just lascivious? Even sisters that claim to be in the truth. And that is an unclean thing to do. Go ahead.
But ye have not so learned Christ.
So Christ, another nickname for him is the word. You have not learned the word. Maybe you've heard the word, but you haven't learned it if you're walking in the vanity of your mind.
If so be that ye have heard him and have been taught by him as the truth is in Yahushua, that ye put off concerning the former conversation, the old man which is corrupt according to the deceitful lust.
So if you've been taught by the word, if you believe the truth is in the word, then you have to put off that old man, that old woman, that old conversation, the way you talk is gonna sound different. The way you dress is gonna look different. The way you act is gonna look different.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole life is gonna look different.
Everything.
Everything. And you have to put off those corrupt, deceitful lusts. Any type of lust of the world doesn't have to just be sexual. It could be for money. It could be for uh, what most people fall into, or not most, but a lot of
Attention.
brothers, exactly, attention and praise. Right? That's what a lot of people fall into. That's a lust. You're lusting for power. You're lusting for eyes on you. You're lusting for people to look at you like, oh man. Go ahead.
And be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that ye put on that new man, which after Yahweh is created in righteousness and true holiness.
So you have to put off that old man and put on the new man, which is after Yahweh, meaning you're going to be following after what he says to do. And you're created in righteousness and true holiness. How do you live holy? It's by following the word. How do you follow after righteousness? It says, when you keep the commandments, this shall be counted as righteousness to you.
Mm-hmm.
But also, Yahushua said, when he got baptized, he said he was doing it because this is a way for us to fulfill all righteousness,
Thorough.
right? For us to fulfill all righteousness. So we're putting on that new man literally through baptism. And now, of course, that's not the end all be all. Oh, I'm baptized, I'm saved. But that is one of the steps that we have to take in order to put on that new man.
Wherefore, putting away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another.
So another thing that is a form of leaven is lying, not speaking the truth, right? And something that everybody has seen or heard, whether in the world or in the truth, is lying, right? But that same brother that had pointed out the whole prideful thing, where I ended up taking down a bunch of the videos, he had also pointed out to me, or taught me, whether he realized it or not, years ago, probably maybe close around 5 years ago, is faithful witnesses, a faithful witness,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he said, well, man, when I remember when I was in high school and there would be kids stealing from backpacks, like that's what they would do.
I remember
You know, they would unzip
that.
it while, so you'll be
Snatch
talking to
that shit up,
somebody, they'll unzip it and they'll go grab something. And back then it's like, man, you're a snitch. You snitched me out, blah, blah. And he was like, it's funny because it's the total opposite in the truth. Like, you gotta be, if somebody comes and asks you, hey, did you see who's opened my backpack? You gotta be a faithful witness.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's another form of leaven. Go ahead.
Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath.
This is another one that I know is big for a lot of people, is anger, right? Somebody could say something to you and now your whole day is ruined. You're just mad for the whole rest of the day, right?
Neither give place to the devil. Let him that stole steal no more.
Okay, so like, so neither give place to the devil. When you're
Mm-hmm.
angry and you let the sun go down upon your wrath, right? You go to sleep angry, that's something you shouldn't do. You're giving a place to the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And I know of many people that have told me over the years about what is it called, sleep paralysis,
Man.
and all types of, people are, like, them attacking in your dreams, which that's happened to me in times past. And as far as like, you have a dream and something will attack you. And I remember one night, it was a long while back, but me and my rib the same night had bad dreams. It wasn't like the same dream or nothing. We both had a bad dream, and she was telling me about it, and I was like, man, that's crazy, because I had a bad dream too. And as soon as, whatever happened that was bad, I started saying, how about Shemi, how was shy? And boom, I woke up, and she was like, that's exactly what I did too. So we were on one accord in that sense, right? But that's just one way to give place to the devil. When you're being angry and you go to sleep, or you're fearful and you go to sleep, or you're
Mm-hmm.
holding a grudge and you go to sleep, or you just finished gossiping about somebody and then you go to sleep. Anything, right? Because you're giving a place to the devil. You're going to sleep in the wrong spirit.
Uh-huh.
Or you're lustful when you go to sleep. There's a lot of brothers that, hit me up all the time that that's something that they struggle with, whether it be porn or whether it be any type of lust. And you're over here watching something or doing something you shouldn't do, and then you go to sleep.
Mhm.
You're giving place to the devil. Um, but then it said, "Let him that stole steal no more." That is talking about repentance. That is repentance. Because if you ask Christians what repentance is, they're gonna give you something that sounds real good, right?
A whole paragraph.
But to put it simply, this is repentance. Let him that stole steal no more. If you bear false witness, don't bear false witness no more. If you disobey your parents, dishonor them, don't do it anymore. If you break Sabbath, don't do it anymore. Go ahead.
But rather let him labor, working with his hands the thing which is good, that he may have to give to him that needeth.
So that's another form of leaven. Even though it doesn't say it specifically here, it implies it. Idleness teacheth much evil, right? So when it says, don't steal, instead work so you can have what you need. A lot of brothers over the years have hit me up and, man, nah, it's because I don't have this, or I don't provide, I don't blah blah blah. Well, do you have a job? Well, no. Well, there's your problem right there. And that's more of
Said
I mean,
still too long.
it should be common sense, right?
Well, common sense ain't common no more. So
But yeah, that's something that, and sisters as well, brothers and sisters, the more idle you are, the less busy you stay, the more opportunities you're giving to the devil. And that is definitely a form of leaven, whether people realize it or not, is being lazy, being slothful. Go ahead.
because what it's saying, I think it's in Ecclesiastes 10:18 or 18 or yeah 10:18 where it talks about much idleness the house starts to drop through. Right, it's like leaven because if you stay idle for too long and you let it get too deep into you, you're gonna start developing lazy habits and bad habits, and then it's just gonna keep growing from there.
Let me read it real quick. It's Ecclesiastes 10 and 18. By much slothfulness, the building decayeth, and through idleness of the hands, the house droppeth through. And that's something, again, polygamy, right? If I have a house and I'm just lazy and we don't take care of it, it's going to end up, now there's mold in the floors and there's
Mm-hmm.
termites and there's animals coming in. And through idleness of the hands, the house dropped it through. There was a hole in the roof and I didn't fix it. Now water's coming in. But also your temple. Your temple is the house for your soul, for your spirit, right? By being slothful, by being idle, what happens? Your buildings start decaying. Now you're sick. Now you're overweight. Now you can't even walk up the stairs without huffing and puffing. Now you're just walking around and you're hurting yourself, right? So it can go either way. Slothfulness is definitely a form of leaven. Then that's something that, just practically thinking, if you believe all the prophecies and all these things are going to come to pass, as far as like Jacob's trouble or what Christians call the tribulation, it would make perfect sense. Again, should be common sense that you should get your temple in decent or the best shape you possibly can to prepare for the times to come.
Verse 29: Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Yahweh, whereby ye are sealed unto the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice.
So it said in 29 not to let corrupt communication come out of your mouth. You should be edifying with your mouth. You should be giving grace with your mouth, right? It says not to grieve the Holy Spirit. Because when you're speaking corrupt communications like this, bitterness, you're speaking and you're all bitter towards your brother or sister. You're speaking in a wrathful or angry manner. You're being clamorous. Man, that's one thing I just can't stand with females, bro. Clamor. You're evil speaking against your neighbor. It says, let that be put away from you with all malice. And malice is like a type of anger or evilness where you want to see something bad happen to somebody.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
And be ye kind one to another, tender hearted, forgiving one another, even as Yahweh, for Hamashiach's sake, hath forgiven you.
So we'll end with that last one. Forgiving other people. If you have any type of unforgiveness towards a brother or sister or towards anybody, then you got to get that taken care of before you can eat of the Passover worthily as well, right? Because like it says in the Adawan Palau, in the Lord's Prayer, it says you have to forgive to be forgiven. If you're asking the Most High to forgive you for certain things and you haven't forgiven other people, then He's not going to forgive you, because just like we were talking about hypocrites earlier, how much of a hypocrite would I be if I'm not forgiving people for something they did to me or to my wife, and I'm over here, oh please Yahweh forgive me, but I haven't forgiven my brother or sister,
Mm-hmm.
right? So with that, I don't think there's any more, no more questions. The water for your labor, I give a beautiful lesson. Khan, I'll praise the Most High Yahweh, Basham Yahweh Shai. It's a blessing. I was talking to a brother, this brother named Kamal. Um, it's funny because I met him years ago, or through social media, right? Years ago, and I always knew he was a real sincere brother and all that stuff. And yeah, he just basically reached out and said, I want to give you your flowers. It's a huge blessing to be used by the Most High. And man, that's always how we should see it. Like it's the biggest blessing to be able to be used by the Most High, because like it says in James, it says he that converts a sinner from the error of his ways
Mm-hmm.
saves the soul, but also hides a multitude of sins. So as we are helping other people, any of y'all are helping, any of you brothers helping other brothers and sisters, you're also helping yourself inadvertently, right? So it's a huge blessing. Um, to be able to put together lessons. Any wisdom comes from the Most High. Actually, can we finish with that? Proverbs 2 and 6.
Con.
Proverbs 2 and 6.
Yeah, I was just reading that this morning.
Con. That's a beautiful verse. We always have to keep that in mind. Proverbs 2 and 6, and that's why we'll finish with that. Um, Con. Shabbat shalom to everybody keeping the Sabbath today. Like I said, I know there was a few brothers. I think one of them might be on here that was keeping Feast of Unleavened Bread today. Hope y'all have a beautiful one. Love and compassion to you all, Khan, to everybody on here. Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai Barakatham, everybody who's on here,
This is
Khan.
Proverbs chapter 2, verse 6. For Yahweh giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding.
So the Most High is the only one who gives wisdom. Out of his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. So we would be fools to sit here and be like, yeah, this is my wisdom and we're giving it to you because we're so wise and understanding and have so much knowledge. It all comes from the Most High. Even for the people that don't know it comes from the Most High, it still comes from the Most High. He gives a certain dispensation of wisdom and knowledge to everybody, and in the end, it's for the benefit of the elect. That's all it is.
All we doing is plagiarizing them. That's it.
Con. That and think about it. There's no new thing under the sun. So if you learn from somebody, and they learn from somebody, and they learn from somebody, and it all goes back to what it just said. All wisdom comes from the Most High. So all praise to the Most High, Yahweh, in the name of His Son Yahweh Shai. Um, I pray you brothers and sisters are examining yourself, judging yourself, so that when that Passover comes, Most High willing, we get to observe it,
Most
because
High willing.
you never know what could happen. Um,
Most High willing.
I pray all of y'all could keep it worthily. So with that, give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh, Bashem Yahweh Shai, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.